My title is career practitioner. So it's kind of like a guidance counselor. I have been working with Edmonton Public School Board for 10 years in March, working with older high school students. So they're fourth and fifth year, but like at that stage where they're ready to take the next step into post-secondary or their career planning, like whether that's apprenticeship, college, or some kind of training for post-sec. So I've been doing that for like, yeah, almost 10 years. And then before that, I worked for college in recruitment and advising as well. And I taught adult ed. I taught English in the evenings for almost 10 years as well. So I've kind of been working in adult ed advising for my whole career.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've been involved with students for a lot of your career.
Yes. And I think the same, like the demographic of this project, like they've all been adults. So I graduated in 2009 with my Bachelor of Education degree in secondary ed. And I continued to only work with adults. Like I never worked with junior high or even a local community school. It was all adult ed. So, and all like, I think that's what makes this like project a good fit because that's all I've been doing is like that, like grade 12 or 30 level, like next step is university, not like the younger kids. So yeah, it's been really good.
And obviously you've enjoyed it so far, right?
Yeah, I really like it. I think adult ed is like where my heart lies. Like, I don't know. It's an interesting topic to think about, like what next step I might do, because this is sort of like connected to the conversation, like with young people trying to figure out what their first step is with university or college or what they want to do. And like the truth is like we're always evolving, right? Like what you do or what career you set out to do, you likely are going to evolve, grow. We don't stay in the same jobs like our parents or, the older generations. We kind of like to try new things. And I've always thought I might go back to school, but I don't know for sure if I will or not.
Did you get like your master's?
Yeah. And for a long time, I wanted to get into like more personal counseling because my role at the high school that I work at is like post-secondary advising, financial aid. I work with our LGBTQ population, but then as soon as it kind of moves into like, anxiety or depression or things like that, then I have to refer them. So I always was wondering if maybe I'd like to take on that as well. But yeah, I need to go back to school and get my master's degree. So I don't know yet. We'll see.
Well, I think you'll do well.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like you just have to take a step, right? Which is like what these kids have to do. Like the youth that we're referring to and talking to is just taking the first step, right? So
yeah. I've talked to a couple of students about counselors at their school, like guidance counselors, obviously. And their number one thing that I keep running into is how much older these counselors are than them, right? Right. So they'll be coming out of high school or they'll be in high school and they'll have a counselor that's maybe 60 years old or 50 something years old, and they feel like they can't really relate to them. Right. So it's good to have a young person in that role, kind of guiding them along where they feel comfortable enough to tell them any kind of situation or whatever situation they're going through and how to seek guidance, essentially.
Yeah, I guess I never thought about that, but that does make sense. Like that you could feel like that sense of relatability. And even with me kind of being in the same shoes in a sense, like considering going back to school and trying to compare different programs or the cost, figuring out how I would pay for it, what type of like, career options would come out of a graduate degree, I guess is like kind of similar to what students are trying to figure out in high school, right?
Absolutely. And we're happy to have you on board because it seems like you have a wealth of knowledge to share with us too, right? And
Thank you.
For sure.
Oh, I'm so excited. Thank you so much. Yeah, this is a great opportunity. I'm really excited to be here.
That's good. All right, so I'll introduce myself a little bit again.
Sure.
My name is Eddie Omega. I'm with the Royal Alberta College, and we're just trying to get some information out there for the kids who don't know where to get it or how to approach it, right? And thank you very much for coming on and helping us out with this. We'll get started with our first question. So, number one thing is like where to start? Where do we start as a student? How do we start applying for school? What do we apply for? Those kind of things. So, um, what options are there?
That is, I think, such an overwhelming and completely valid question. I'm hoping this will work, but I'm gonna try to share my screen with you. Let me know if it works.
Yep.
So I can,
I see it.
oh, awesome. Okay. So I kind of have an overview, but I'll just skip to this one here. You can see it okay?
I can, yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I think the question about like where to start is it feels so overwhelming, right? Because students have so many options. And how do you even know where to begin, what you might need? And the thing that I think is really challenging is that because there's so many options, what you need, the first step, like all of that kind of varies so much. So it varies by province, it varies by post-secondary, it varies by even program within the same institution. So it's really, I can understand why tackling sort of this venture is really overwhelming for young people. And so I guess, I mean, the very first thing might be to think about sort of what you imagine yourself doing, and then reaching out to people, like if you have a community where you can kind of, for example, your high school, if there's somebody there, or we can talk a little bit more about that. But basically, like not being afraid to like talk about it and ask questions. But some of the things that when I talk to students, I ask them to think about their values, obviously what they're interested in, and of course our abilities, right? Because like, for example, like I might want to be a doctor, but like I might not literally be able to get the GPA I need, or I might not be able to afford being in school for 12 years, right? So you kind of have to think about all of that. But there are tools online. So sometimes I'll show students this. I'll just take you here, for example, online resources that any young person could explore. So there are little 10-minute quizzes that like maybe
access that.
Sorry?
Where did you go to access that?
This is a job bank, which is the Government of Canada website.
Okay.
So,
you want to kind of just take us through step by step how to get onto the website?
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, because I linked it in the slide, and so I can link this in the PDF too, I think, right?
You can, yeah.
But I would imagine you could simply even Google like career quizzes job bank, but basically, let's see if I can find it again, because so I went to the job bank, and then you can look through different jobs that are available and like what types of education you would need.
Okay.
Resources tailored. So if we go young Canadians, what do you want to do? And there's different links on here. Choose a career. I would think that if you just go to like searching for, go to the Canadian government website and then resources for youth, and then it should give you this option. But I can for sure make this linkable in the PDF.
Okay. Now, the reason why I ask is because when people are watching this, right, they want to be able to, some people want to be, have their hands held almost, right?
Right.
So, yeah, so that's why I was asking.
Like how to get there, for sure. Yeah. Okay. So if you go to the job bank, that's where I guess I would go. Government of Canada Job Bank, and then you can search jobs, and then career planning is where you would find different areas of like industry. Okay. And then here's where the career quizzes, profiles, like if you're wondering, oh, I wonder what does a veterinarian do, or what does an architect do, then you can click on that one. And then there's things like market trends, for example, like is a civil engineer in demand, like how much money do they make, like things like that. So I would say, yeah, go to the job bank through the Government of Canada would be a good one. And then they also, because you can choose your location. So our youth are all across Canada, right? So it might be different in Alberta than it is in BC, than it is in, well, it will be, than it is in, of course, like Nova Scotia or Northwest Territories, right?
Okay.
So that's what I would say. Yeah. So, and they're free. And I think it's kind of fun. Like the thing that with young people, like what I would say is that nothing is going to, it's not like you're just going to snap your fingers and know that this is the right decision, but at least you can explore and be curious about options, right? To help you feel comfortable to at least take the first step, knowing that it's okay to change your mind, knowing that it might not, everything might not happen exactly as you plan, and that's okay and that's normal. But at least it kind of gives you some ideas of like where to think. So like I often tell students, like for example, I worked in an airline and I was so glad I had that experience. I worked there for 4 years, but it really taught me about my value system in the sense that I don't want to work shift work. I want to be done by, 4 o'clock. I don't want to work Christmas Day. So that for me was like a value system. But for some of us, we might really appreciate shift work. We might appreciate the overtime or just the type of work that it is. Whereas for me, that was like not within my value system.
Okay.
So I think for young people, like thinking about what experience they already have and ask themselves, like, what did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? What worked for you? Things like that can be helpful in like exploring.
So, like a co-op program through the high school system would be something to explore.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Any hands-on experience, I would say, um, can be very, very beneficial, especially if you start reflecting on, yeah, what were you good at? What came easy to you? What was a challenge for you? Why was it a challenge? Like if I reflect back on that airline job, I realized I really like solving problems and helping people. So that is something that I took from that experience and moved into and continue to use in my daily job, right? Students come to me with problems and I try to help them solve it. I try to give them guidance or come up with multiple solutions that might work for them, right? So on the one hand, like it's just never a waste, like trying something, whether that's like a co-op, volunteering at your school, things like that. Yeah, absolutely can help you with kind of sorting out at least a direction, even if you don't know 100% for sure where that's going to take you.
Okay. Now, if a student was to come to you and say, "Hey, you know what? I don't really know where my life is going," would you take them through that job bank website, or?
I would. I think what I would do is, well, if I would hope that they trusted me and I might just ask them to tell me a little bit about what they're feeling and what they're experiencing, and what, you know, maybe how their courses are going, how they're like if they're what just sort of what's happening in their life. And then yeah, I think I would just sit down and I maybe ask them about what jobs they've had, what they like kind of what we just talked about, what experience they've had and what they liked about it, what they didn't like about it. Um, and then I might do some of those quizzes. I don't think like it's going to fix that sort of ambiguity or anxiety about planning our career, but it can give us sort of ideas, which I think can be helpful. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
No, it makes a lot of sense for sure. Did you want to continue through your slides?
Sure,
Okay.
sure. Um, so, okay, I'll take you to another website, which is still through the Government of Canada. So let's say with either conversations with our high school guidance counselor, our parents, our friends, or maybe we see something on TV or in a movie and we're like, wow, I really want to do that. So I'm back at that same website, the job bank, and I'm just on a different tab here. So we were over in the career planning side of things before, and now this is looking at like trends. So if I type in, for example, architect, it'll come up, let's just say, and let's say I want to know what I need. Like I want to take a look at it in Winnipeg. Let's say that's where I am. So then I can read, okay, what do they do? It has a description. I can read about how much architects make, how much money they make, and it will vary by region, right? I can then go and look and see what the requirements are. So, and this is the tricky part with with like trying to figure out what you want to do when you're looking at youth across Canada, because a lot of these jobs are regulated by province or territory. So there might be some discrepancies there will be some discrepancies between jobs in different provinces. So like, for example, to be a psychologist in some provinces, you need your PhD, whereas in Alberta, you only need your master's degree. So that's why something like this can be a little bit helpful. So you can see in your own province, like what you would need to pursue that career. So if we're looking at architect, for example, it kind of goes through like what you might need here. So it looks at, okay, a bachelor's degree. So a bachelor's degree is your first 4-year degree out of university. Your undergraduate, you might hear it called baccalaureate from an accredited school. So that usually takes students at least 4 years. And that would be your first requirement that you would have to do for this job. So, right, so if we go in and put other, like here, we're on architect, right? So if we obviously choose other jobs, it'll give you examples of what you need for other jobs as well. And then you'll be able to see like how, so for example, if I click here, you can see how it's regulated different in different provinces. So in Alberta, you have to be have a license to the Alberta Association of Architects. So students, if let's say you want to be an architect, you can click on that and then find a list of schools that offer the education that you need to become an architect in Alberta, and then you obviously in every other province. So it's helpful because obviously you need to know like what school you can go to. This website is Universitystudy.ca, and I find this one really, really helpful as well. So I typed in architect or architecture, and what it does is it populates all of the universities that offer architecture. So on the left-hand side, you can see there's master's degrees, bachelor's degrees, certificate, doctorate, whatever. So there are different levels of education, right? So all of our youth are likely going to be starting with like an undergraduate degree. So a bachelor's degree is the first thing that most of our students would be looking at. And then you would pursue further study. But let's say I'm in Ontario, I need to know what universities offer architecture. And then that would help me kind of look at the next step, which we'll talk about, which is what do I need to get in? Does that kind of
that makes sense.
So the other thing that students need to think about or might want to imagine is like, let's say you want to go to post-secondary, but you might want to think about like, what type of experience do you want to have? Like some universities have really good co-op programs like you had mentioned. Some universities are really big on research and prioritize that even at an undergraduate level. Or do you want more of a hands-on education? Even something like apprenticeship, or like some technical schools have a lot more hands-on, like a focus with their education system and program, so that you're more learning kind of on the job, or at least like with your hands, rather than just sitting in a classroom for 4 to 5 years. So students want to think about what type of education that they want and how long they're willing to be in school. So we were looking at architect as an example, but you would need an undergraduate degree, which is 4 years, plus likely a master's degree, which is another 2 to 3, maybe even 4 years. So students kind of have to think about how long they want to be in school, what can they afford, and just what kind of experience do they want. Like for me, I went to the University of Alberta, and I really kind of wanted that university experience, like, just the whole big campus, the old libraries, like that was just something I really wanted to experience. And so that's what I did. But some students, like, okay, for example, my brother, he did not want that and went straight to a welding apprenticeship so that he could learn on the job, didn't come out with student loans, just wanted to be working and earning right away rather than be in school. So students can kind of think about that.
Okay, well, that's very good information. I think like even finding the right university to go to is overwhelming for students because for them there's so many different factors, right? There's the program, the friends, um, like the type of personality they have, if it's going to
Mhm.
work well with the university. There's so many different factors, right? So um, the information is very, very good for us to be able to push out to them, right?
I think so
Um,
too.
yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was just agreeing with you. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I feel like where to start. We we did well on that. We have a lot of information. Is there anything else you have on where to start?
Um, no, I don't think so. Like the other piece of advice would be like around actually going to see the schools wherever you're located. I kind of touch on that later. But that would be another thing to explore is to actually physically go to a campus in your city that you're interested in. Some students are hoping to move for post-secondary, but if you're hoping to go right in your residence in your city that you live in, then book a tour. Recruiters are always hosting information sessions, open houses, workshops, even. So I would say go physically go and see what the campus is like, see what the faculty are like, talk to an advisor if you can. You can get kind of a vibe of the school that way. And then even, yeah, just kind of get an idea of what it would feel like to study there. So that would be my other thing that I would say students should certainly consider.
Um, okay. The other thing I would ask is, what's the most important thing socially
Mm.
when looking for a school? Do you think that being around your friend group is important? Do you feel like being close to your family is important? What should students consider the most? Because this is for minimum 4 years of their life, right?
Yeah, yeah. You
Yeah.
know what? That's a great question. And I would think that it kind of varies by person. So I would say for a student to be really reflective on like who they are as a person, what they know so far. Like I I personally don't think students should choose a school based on their friends because I think there's so many ways to get involved once you start school. You can join groups, you can seek out. I would, yeah, like there's just so much on campus that you can then do to meet friends. That would be my personal thing. Like I would say that students should more so think about, does the school offer the program that I want? Uh, yeah, more so than the friend group. But of course, like students have to take care of their mental health and have support systems in place. So I can see that being a factor. I would more think about like young people trying to, like, for example, if you live in a rural area, you might have to move for school, right? So because there may not simply be programs in your town or city. Um, so it would be important and imperative to seek out a support system, obviously, if you're moving, because university is such an overwhelming experience, especially that first year. So taking advantage of orientations, taking advantage of welcome sessions and groups that they can get involved in, seeking even personal support like counseling. Most universities have counseling uh, to set up like a support structure for themselves. It would be really important.
Yeah. And the reason I ask is because I find a lot of students get into that trap where they feel, oh, you know what, if me and this person or that person go into university together, it might be easier. But
Mhm.
um, like you said, what's most important is, does this school offer the right program for me?
Mhm.
And go.
That's certainly what I would say. But I can understand that, like, because you feel safe, right? And university and college is such an uncertain like experience, right? You've never done it. You don't know what you're going to experience. You don't know what it's going to be like. So of course there's that anxiety for sure.
Absolutely,
Which
I
which
agree.
is totally normal, right? Like it's so normal to feel like you don't know what's going on or feel like you're the only one who doesn't know what's going on. Like that's so normal. And it's not true. Nobody knows what's going on in your first year.
No, that's true. That's absolutely true.